This is something that I find really strange and puzzling. About 4 weeks ago, I thought at first there were two red navigational lights on the monument on top of Dundee Law. Dundee Law, also known as the Law Hill. I've been to Wormit Bay many times before, and I never noticed this. I then investigated this and found out it was an optical illusion regarding the Angus transmitter mast miles behind it in the Sidlaw Hills. 4 weeks later, at the exact same place in Wormit Bay, I see three red navigational lights, which makes it obvious to me that it's the Angus transmitter mast in the distance, in the background. Why are there three lights visible now, and what made it appear that there were two lights on the monument in the first place, considering I've been there many times before? I compiled my footage and investigation footage into this video. So what's quite odd is I just noticed that they've got red lights on the monument on the top of the Law Hill. I don't know when they did that, but certainly never used to. So never had any navigational lights on the monument on the Law Hill. The only navigational light was on the mast, the radio mast. That's the train going over the Dundee rail bridge over towards Fife. And in the background you can see the docks, the oil rigs. This is looking from Wormit Bay. These navigational lights is lights on top of Craigaville, the masts on Craigaville. The ones to the right of it are the ones on the monument on the Law Hill. There is a mast light you might just be able to make out. The Law Hill radio transmitter is very faint. The other red lights at the bottom of that is car lights. Car tail lights, but you might just make out to the left of the mast, the monument rather, the two red lights on the monument. If you look to the top light on the monument, then just look over to the left, you might just faintly see a light high up, nearly the same level as it. That's the one on the top of the radio transmitter on the Law Hill. The one at the bottom, that red light between them at the bottom, that'll be a car tail light. So I'm going to go up there and just have a look at that, because as I say, it's the first I've known about it. The red lights are on the monument on, actually it's called Dundee Law technically, it's not really called the Law Hill, because in the old language law meant hill, so when you say the Law Hill you're actually saying the hill. So technically it's called the Dundee Law, and I'm going to get footage of that train going over the Terrell Bridge. So as a conclusion, the concluding part of my video, I've investigated it. I was at Wormit Bay over in Fife, looking over towards the Dundee Law. There's the monument. It's not very clear at the moment because it is pitch dark. I've got the torchlight on, but it's not going to really illuminate it very much. But there's the monument anyway, what you can see of it. Clearly there's no lights on it. You can see the lights on the transmitter, the radio transmitter on the top of Dundee Law. Now, from the viewpoint, I was over in Fife at Wormit Bay, looking over towards the Dundee Law, and it appeared there was two red navigational lights on the Dundee Law monument. Now, upon investigation, I've came up and had a look. There aren't. However, behind it, looking over towards the Craigable Hills, there is the TV transmitter mast, several miles away from it. That made it appear that these red lights were on the Dundee Law monument. It was in fact an optical illusion. And going up to the summit of Dundee Law, looking over towards the north boundary of Dundee, at Craigable Hill, Sidlow Hill range, I could see now, well, you could see now, the 5 navigational lights on the radio transmitter, the TV transmitter, the Angus transmitter mast. That's the Angus transmitter mast. To the left of that is Craigable Hill with its mast on the top of the two lights. There's the radio transmitter on top of Dundee Law, navigational light. And looking over towards Fife, Wormit Bay, you can see the rail bridge, rail bridge navigational lights for the boats, ships, the maritime navigational lights. And just to the right of that is Wormit Bay, the dark area where I was standing at. And from that point, as I say, it looked like there was lights on the monument on the top of Dundee Law. I've come up here, clearly there aren't any lights on the monument, and it was the illusion from the mast, Angus transmitter mast. When I started moving away from Wormit, I noticed that these lights, where it appeared there was only 2 on the monument, then it appeared there was 3, 4, and then it dawned on me that that was an optical illusion. Because it is dark, you know, if it was during the day I would have noticed quite clearly that it was I would probably see the mast, the Angus transmitter mast from where I was at earlier. And I wouldn't have came to that conclusion earlier, thinking that there was navigational lights on the monument. But because it's dark, it's so much more difficult to, you know, it's impossible to see the structure unless it's lit up. And it just gave us that illusion that there was 2 lights on the monument. That intrigued me and got me over here, because when I looked at it I said, no way there's a lights on that monument. So I just had to come over to verify it. But as I was driving across from Wormit Bay through Newport and eventually across the Tay Road Bridge, it became more clearer to me that it was more likely to be Angus transmitter mast. And that's pretty much what I've concluded that it is. So on it, the way I Wormit Bay again, and looking at the mast lights, where once I thought that was on the Law Hill monument. Now the strange thing is, the car park's only there. So when I walk from this point here at Wormit Bay, just along a wee bit, it would become clear and evident to me that there's now 3 lights appearing, and therefore I wouldn't have fallen for that mistake that I thought I saw 2 lights on the monument on the top of Dundee Law. Because on returning back to my car I would then see these lights beginning to appear more. There's more of them, not just 2, there's now 3. And that's just a few footsteps away. So the further I go towards that car park, where I'm parked just along a bit, there'd be more and more of these lights appearing. Now in that last video I done regarding these lights, I was standing roughly about where I am now, where it would appear that there's 2, which is now what's appearing to be 2. And on returning back to my car, I would have clearly have noticed that there would now become 3 visible, which is you can just see now. So why would I have fallen for that? Because I surely would have noticed that it would be the mast at the Angus transmitter I was seeing, and not lights on the top of Dundee Law, on the monument. But that last time I was here, I actually went up to the Law because I was convinced there was 2 lights on it. But how could I have mistaken that? Because en route back to my car I would have noticed, and therefore I wouldn't have bothered going up. Strangely enough, it wasn't until I was actually driving across the Tay towards through Newport that I began to realise that there was more lights, and I was beginning to suspect that it was a mast. But that's when I'd driven along in towards Newport considerably. So I find that really odd. It's 4 weeks later because of that one. So it's 4 weeks since it was last year. It's the 12th, I think. 12th of October 2023. Because I would have been part here, and I would have clearly seen there was more than 2 lights visible, and I would have just dismissed it as, well, I would have realised that it was the Angus transmitter, and therefore I wouldn't have continued to investigate further. But somehow I had the urge to go up to the Law Hall because it still only showed 2 lights on the top of the Law Hall at the car park, because it gave me the whole point to go up there to check it. So I find 3 lights. There's now 3 lights visible. So I'm up at the top of the Law Hall. The remembrance light is on the monument. The 4-foot transmitter mast light is still out. The Angus transmitter mast lights are still on. They've never known that mast, never noticed lights on. Lights out rather. And Craigable to the left. The mast on top of Craigable, that's those ones. They're still on. But very unusual that the 4th one's out. But even more strange, like I said earlier, why I saw the 3 red lights from where I stood. From where I stood last time, 4 weeks ago, when I only saw 2. Which made me think they were on the Dundee Law monument. Anyway, same date, 12th of October 2023. Top of Dundee Law. This is at Wormit Bay, looking over to the Law Hall where the 4-foot transmitter, not the 4-foot, the Angus transmitter mast is. And at this point 4 weeks ago, I was able to see 2 lights visible on it that I mistook for the monument on top of the Dundee Law. But yesterday, 4 weeks later, it became clear from where it's standing that there was 3 lights visible, and I wouldn't have fallen for it 4 weeks ago. I wouldn't have thought it was anything to do with the monument, because I would have known it was the Angus transmitter. So I'm looking at the tree line on the Law Hall to see if that has anything to do with it. I'm going to get the binoculars and check, although I just don't think the trees, the leaves would be enough to warrant a red light to that degree, to be covered up to, completely. It's just odd that that in here, in that mast, that obviously is during the day, I can clearly see it's the Angus transmitter. But 4 weeks ago, I was looking for I mistook 2 lights visible. I thought it was on the monument of the Dundee Law. And obviously, being here, I would have noticed. I still noticed it was 2 lights 4 weeks ago. But yesterday it was clearly 3 lights, and therefore I wouldn't have fallen for it. So what's changed? Why now can I see 3 lights at night? This is obviously during the day. This is, as you can tell, is daylight. I wouldn't have mistook that for 1 second, because I could clearly see the Angus transmitter behind the Law. So I just can't figure out why there's no three lights visible. It wasn't until I started driving along towards Newport, heading in the direction of the Tay Bridge, that I noticed that there was more lights starting to show 4 weeks ago. But I still went on the Dundee Law anyway, just to confirm. But yesterday, as I say, it was here and I was able to see three lights. So it's finding it really unusual. I'm going to get the binoculars and just have a look at to see what might have struck that light 4 weeks ago. The tree light. I can't really think it'd be enough leaves coming off the trees because it's only 4 weeks apart. It was the 13th. It was Friday the 13th of October, which was yesterday when I was here. And it was in three lights. The last time it was 4 weeks prior to that, so that would have been some point in the sort of late middle of September. So I couldn't see there being enough leaves coming off the trees to uncover the light. Well, it looks like from here there is a tree line that blocks the sight of the bottom part of the mast. I'm going to get the binoculars and just look at the trees from this angle to see if that may be a plausible explanation. Today is the day after, it's the 14th sorry, 13th, Friday the 13th. My mistake, it was actually yesterday, it was the 12th of October 2023. So it was Thursday the 12th of October 2023. Today's the next day, the following day, the 13th. So they could just see the mast in the background. We'll try and point it out again. I'll use this pen as a pointer. I can see it clearly, but I'm just trying to get it on the camera. There. Let's just obviously see it quite clearly during the day. So at the point here, where it would probably only see two lights anyway, because of the Dundee Law blocking out the bottom part of the mast, the Angus transmitter mast. But looking at the trees, it's the pine trees, they don't change in the winter. Between the 4 weeks, between the late part of September and coming towards the middle of autumn, I don't think they would change that much. These type of pine trees the Law Hill and the Law itself. So I can't really see that being a factor to block off the navigation lights. And this is just distance from the car park, and I'm quite sure it would be only two lights visible. But like I said, 4 weeks ago I would have walked to the car at the car park and I would have noticed right away that there was more lights visible. I would have realised that the Angus transmitter. So even at this point here, you can see the mast, there's more of the mast visible. The trees to the east of the Dundee Law reveal more of the mast. Well, it's coming up in this camera, but it certainly reveals more of it. And at this point, obviously, heading back towards the car, I would have realised there was more lights. And that night, by the way, 4 weeks ago, all the Angus transmitter mast lights were broken, because I went up to the top of Dundee Law to investigate the original idea of the navigational lights being on the monument. So it wasn't to do with any of the lights being out, all the lights are working. So, like I say, that's me now. I'm in the car, and you can see the mast clearly, and you can see a lot more revealed. So I'm just trying to point out here with this. So there's the mast. There's more of it revealed now. You can see how the Law Hill line is going down the Dundee Law. There's the tree line there. Now, 4 weeks ago, I'll try and get the exact date later, but it was 4 weeks from the 12th of October 2023, whatever date that was. So it'd be mid to late September. It was a Wednesday anyway. it doesn't really overly matter, but I know it was 4 calendar weeks prior. I would have been in the car, in this car park here, and I would have only saw 2 lights, because if I'd saw more lights on the mast, I would have realised right away that it was the Angus transmitter. Because it was dark and everything, I thought there was 2 navigational lights on the monument on the top of Dundee Law. So I went up and I drove from here towards the Dundee Law, and en route, like way up the road, way past, right through Newport and everything, I started noticing there was more, getting near enough the Tay Bridge. I even mentioned it on the video that I was starting to see more red lights, and then I was beginning to realise that it may be the Angus transmitter, but I still went up to the top of Dundee Law summit, to the monument, just to confirm it. And that, by the way, is when I discovered about the Forfar transmitter mast lights being up, which is another anomaly and strange thing in its own right. I've done a separate video on that, but so one thing led to another basically. But coming back to this point, I was here yesterday, as I said, at the same place I was at 4 weeks prior, and realised there was 3 lights visible. And then it wasn't until I was up there further, just up a wee bit, where I noticed that you go up that path and you could see 2 lights. You know, being when it's dark, of course, at night, there was 2 lights where you could mistakenly think, or where I mistakenly thought that there was 2 lights on the monument, but only just a couple of yards, you know, towards the east, towards the car park, heading in the east direction from the standpoint up there. Just heading maybe a couple yards along, it became clear that there was 3 lights on the mast, the Angus transmitter mast. So, as I say, that baffled me, because 4 weeks prior I would have, if that were the case, I would have noticed. So, because obviously it didn't take me till much further along the road heading in the east direction to realise that there was more lights becoming visible, where it started to dawn on me that it was the Angus transmitter. And then, anyway, even in its own right, it's strange, because I've come to this lay-by many times before and never fell for it. I never once thought about, I made that mistake thinking there was lights on the monument on top of Dundee Law. But 4 weeks ago, for some odd reason, I did, enough to drive me to actually go up and have a look. So as I say, I came back here again just yesterday, the 12th of October 2023, Thursday. Today's Friday the 13th, I come back here during the day, but yesterday was here, like I said, there was 3 lights visible. You only get the 2 light anomaly of the 2 lights visible when you go just up there a wee bit along that path, but by the time you get to here, it's clearly 3 lights. So I don't know how on earth the 4 weeks prior to that there was only 2 lights visible. And like I say, all the mast lights were on that night, as they are now. I don't ever know any of the mast lights. Well, I can't remember any of them ever been out before at this moment, but certainly they were all on last 4 weeks ago. They were all on yesterday, obviously. And as I say, and given the tree line and the sort of like investigating at the tree line to see if that's got anything to do with it. The tree line, if I could get this to show, is there. That's the tree lines in question, because you can see it sort of goes down. Now I'm going to go close up to these trees. I think they're pine trees, and I don't think they would change that much within the 4 week time gap. 4 weeks time gap from the middle to late September to the 12th of October. I'll get the exact calendar date in a minute. Yeah, it was around about the Thursday, the 14th of September 2023. That's when I first mistook these the Angus transmitter lights, the navigational lights on the Angus transmitter, to be on, appearing to be on the monument, you know, from the standpoint just along the path a bit, viewed from along there a bit. You say it was dark, and as I say, I've been here many times before and never fell for it, so again it's quite odd why that would happen. But even then, anyway, this is odd as well. So, and talking about this extra light being on now, because on the Thursday the 14th of September, there was only 2 lights on there that was visible from here, from where I'm at now. which is just the Wormit Bay car park. And yesterday, as I said, as I'm trying to explain, there's now 3 lights. So what has happened between the the Thursday, the 14th of September, and yesterday, the 12th of October, Thursday the 12th of October, all I know is there are 3 lights visible. And the 4 weeks prior, it wasn't. How come now I could see 3 lights from where I'm at now? As I said, I'm checking these tree lines to see there's no buildings or anything that would change in that time, evidently, that I could see from here, and I know the area fairly well. I don't know or realise anything, I can't think of anything that would cause that light to be obstructed 4 weeks ago. The autumn leaves and that, you know, I've taken that into consideration. Now I'm going to go and have a closer look at the trees again. There's pine trees, but I'll go up and have another look, closer look, because now I know where the mast is in relation to the Law Hall, Dundee Law rather, from the standpoint of here, you know, the viewpoint from where I'm at Wormit Bay. So it's just a bizarre one for me, like, and as I say, all the lights were working on the Angus transmitter mast, working 4 weeks ago, and they're working, well, all the time basically. So that's nothing to do with any of the lights being up. This is just pretty bizarre as well. A rainbow when there's a blue sky and no rain at all. It's viewed here from Newport. I was actually just heading towards the Dundee Law to do investigate these trees regarding the mast lights, and I came across this. A rainbow and a blue sky, no rain. So away now. I was only there for about not even 5 minutes. So it didn't last very long, but just found that a bit odd actually. Not the Dundee Law, that's the monument, and the viewpoint that I was at, the Wormit, was across the river there. That's the trees. I thought, well, they were all pine, obviously. It's a mixture of trees. That's where I was at earlier. Wormit Bay is just at the right hand side of the in fact, it's sort of a bit there. That's where I was looking at. I was viewing the monument on top of Dundee Law. Now when it's dark, obviously it's difficult to see all the landmarks, so the optical illusion made it appear there was 2 navigational lights on this monument when there wasn't. And as I say, that was in September, the 14th. Now the types of trees that were on that, which was blocking the view of the Angus transmitter, which is there. And the Angus transmitter is in part of the Sidlaw Hills. There's the trees there on the east, which would have blocked the view of it, viewed from Wormit Bay. Now that's I'm going to have a closer look at the trees as well. So I'm doing that to get the types of trees, to see if it's got anything to do with the leaves coming off them or anything like that. If that's got an effect with the view, blocking the view of that light. I'm going to show you a closer look at I'm going to show you the Angus transmitter mast from this point of the top of the Dundee Law. This is looking to the north. The hills in the background of this, and hills. That's the Angus transmitter mast there. The Fife transmitter mast is just to the a few miles, about 5 miles to the east of the Angus one. I could see it with my naked eye, but there's probably no chance of it coming through in this camera because it's very faint. And the navigational lights on that aren't working, which is, well, they're not on. Whether they're working or not, I don't know, they're not on. So I find that very odd, but that's for a different video. I've done reference to that in another video. But back to the point in the matter, I'm going to now have a look at closer look at the trees that would have blocked the vision of the Angus transmitter mast, which is in the Sidlands. So sometimes it's difficult to view it when the light hits it, but I could see it no bother with my naked eye, but the camera doesn't really pick it up as well. So we're heading down towards the trees area. This is the tree line that would have blocked the view of the Angus transmitter light when viewed from Wormit Bay, just across the river there, and to the west side of the, well, across the river to the right of the rail bridge. It was where Wormit Bay car park is in Wormit Bay, where I was at when I viewed the Angus transmitter lights. And this would be the trees that were blocking the view of it. They don't seem to have changed. I wouldn't have thought they would have changed that much in the last 4 weeks. You know, it just seems too much. I just can't understand why, you know, the light isn't seen anymore. Sorry, the light is seen now, whereas 4 weeks ago it wasn't. You know, we're checking the trees for, you know, for leaves. I mean, because it's autumn, the leaves have cleared the view of the light. But I mean, some of the trees will have the leaves that have come off them, but these types, well, I don't know if it's enough to do that. And even still, when I was moving away from the car park today, the mast, the Angus transmitter mast, was really visible. Maybe you'd probably even see 4 lights if it was lit up, you know. But 4 weeks ago, it took me until near enough the Tay road bridge to see more lights. I mean, certainly to Newport anyway, a considerable distance. In reference to what I'm talking about, that's a considerable distance in relation to what distances I'm referring to in this. You know, I mean, it'd be like Wormit Bay, it's about a mile. There's about a mile between Wormit Bay and Newport, maybe a mile and a half. So certainly within that journey, the mast became more obvious to me that it was the Angus transmitter mast 4 weeks ago. But as I say, yesterday, it was just yards from the car. In fact, no, yards from where I was standing at, which was probably a wee bit further, just where I showed you earlier on the video, where I was standing on the path in the westerly direction. But when I got to the car park, the mast, there was more than enough to reveal that it was the Angus transmitter mast. Like I say, there was 3 lights. But this is certainly the side of the Law Hill where the tree line would be. And this is the kind of trees. I mean, that there has lost a lot, I presume. But even still, in 4 weeks' time, it certainly looked more like these trees that were blocking the Angus transmitter mast, the pine ones, when I used the binoculars, because I've got my binoculars as well. Can't film, I can't record that unfortunately, but I looked through the binoculars from Wormit Bay over there. And the trees, the types of trees looked like the green pine trees that were blocking the view of the Angus transmitter mast. And they were the tallest ones. And I can't understand how they would have changed so much in the last 4 weeks. And just as I said, the season's, it's the 12th of October yesterday, and it was the 14th of September when I noticed the first time when there was only 2 lights. So I just don't think they'll have changed that much in the last 4 weeks, enough to warrant the view for the Angus transmitter mast navigational light. So I just don't really quite, to me it's quite strange. I have taken measures to, you know, I've made efforts to try and figure out what's caused it like, but I doubt it's this, because I mean, I just have my doubts that it's the trees that have changed that much. I'm no tree expert, but I could look further into it later on, but certainly it's an odd one for me anyway, because like I say, I've been to Wormit Bay loads of times over the years, and initially I wouldn't have fallen for the monument on Dundee Law, having, you know, the optical illusion with the mast lights. So that's odd in its own right, because it's been there for many years, and 4 weeks ago is when I noticed. Now I'm just looking again, the highest trees will be the ones that will block the view, and that's the treetops. They don't look like they've changed as much. It just doesn't look like they would. Like I said, that's where it was at, Wormit Bay. So obviously the treetops would have been the block vision line that would obscure the view of the mast. And looking at the tops of these trees, don't really make me think that that would be what's responsible for blocking that view. They don't look like there's enough there to allow it doesn't look like there's enough there that has changed dramatically in the last 4 weeks to cause that extra light on them. Well, in fact, the mast was really, there was more than 3 lights as I got further past the railways heading towards Newport anyway, which means that if that were 4 weeks ago, I would have been even more convinced that it was the Angus transmitter mast, and probably would have just not even bothered coming up, you know. But because initially anyway, it was odd that I would come across that optical illusion, because I've been up here many times, and I've been to Wormit Bay many times over the years, all light level conditions throughout the year, because we go there for our tea every fortnight after the shopping night. It's a visiting point. We've enjoyed it, so I'm very familiar with it. So even initially I can't understand why I would have suddenly noticed that the optical illusion with the navigational lights on the monument in the first place, which is strange. And as I say, one thing led to another, because I was then drawn to come up here to investigate and realise it was optical illusion. I then realised that the Forfar transmitter mast, all its navigational lights are out, which is strange. And then we usually go over every fortnight to, well, not every fortnight, but, well, no, not every fortnight, but quite a lot of times over the years. But the last 4 weeks ago, as I said, the optical illusion with that, that's how it's all started. And I haven't got to the bottom of that one, so anyway, that's the monument in question. I did do a video on this. I'll probably just splice the original video together. I done video footage of the original reason I came up 4 weeks ago, and I'll just join it all into one big video, you know, join all the stuff I've done to investigate this. And that's the mast on the radio transmitter mast on Dundee Law. So It's quite bizarre. There's no buildings or anything that would vary drastically enough to cause that phenomena. The only things, as I say, that came to my mind was to check the tree tops. That's the only thing I could think of that would, you know, that might be responsible for it. And here I am now up here checking them, and I don't really think that that's enough to cause that to happen. I just don't think it is. So. These would be the trees that are on the east side of the Dundee Law. That would be the ones, the tops of them are the ones that block or obscure the view of the Angus transmitter. So I'm still trying to investigate that. Any suggestions and comments, I'd be interested to read them. Thanks for watching.